Today I skirt the bounds of what is allowed to be uploaded on this platform, as I explain the utterly disgusting SCP known as SCP-610, the flesh that hates. This is probably in my top 5 SCPs of all time, and it also just happens to be one of the most disgusting, grotesque, abhorrent SCPs of all time as well. Viewer discretion is advised. If you get squeamish around flesh and innards, you might not want to watch. Hopefully YouTube doesn't ban this video. But without further ado, let's get into the explanation, and let's talk about SCP-610, shall we? The SCP we're talking about today is number 610, and it has a classification of Keter. The location of this SCP is slightly contained, but not really, in a remote area of southern Siberia, Russia. You'll see what I mean by not really contained later, but that's where this SCP is located. The SCP itself appears as a contagious skin disease that effectively consumes its victims whole. It does this through a process in which I will explain in great detail that hopefully doesn't get me demonetized. When someone is first infected with the SCP, symptoms such as itchy rash, skin sensitivity, and stinging of the extremities will begin to occur at about 2 hours after infection. After that 2-hour mark, the sickness, or the infestation, or the infection, whatever you want to call it, will begin to become more widespread inside of a victim. At this point, lesions and scar tissue will begin to form across the arms, the chest, the legs, and the back of the victim. This scar tissue will essentially absorb all living tissue, and it'll start to spread across that victim's entire body and take over all of the healthy flesh, covering the body instead with this grotesque cracked scar stuff. Over the course of about 5 hours or so, this scar tissue worsens significantly each hour that passes. This spread of rotting, decaying flesh happens faster if the victim is inside of a warmer environment, and instead of it taking 5 entire hours to spread, it could just take it in 5 minutes. But in normal circumstances, a victim that is infected with this SCP will take a few hours to get fully taken over by that scar tissue. Once the infection takes the life of the victim, they will be nothing more than a scarred, decayed tissue sac with the bones inside. They will lose their consciousness and their life functions for about 3 minutes after it's already happened. After this 3-minute time period, the body of the victim will suddenly become reanimated, and this rotted, fleshy person thing will go to have about 2 to 3 times the activity rate of a normal person. And by activity rate, I mean growth rate, because the tissue on the victim will then begin to move and grow and expand on its own, and it'll use that host body as just that, a host. It'll grow and expand and stretch out, and the flesh will begin to take over everything in its vicinity. At this time, after this expansion has happened, normal human features on the victim will begin to disappear. They'll start to become warped and mangled. Arms and legs and fingers and toes will begin to sprout out of the body, and the head of the victim will become so misshapen that you can't even tell it was a person. Seams will begin to rip open out of the flesh and pop to reveal the internal parts of the body, like the guts and the blood. During this time, the flesh is constantly squirming and moving and warping and chortling around, and it literally looks like living flesh. I wonder what YouTube thinks about me describing this so accurately. If you're seeing this, I guess they didn't delete it, but after an unknown duration of this rapid movement and flesh expansion, the victim will be near unrecognizable. It'll just be a blob of this disgusting, undulating flesh. Under unknown conditions, this infected individual, who's no longer really an individual, will begin to stop moving at this point, and the fleshy roots that have come out of the victim will root itself and plant itself in a singular location. The fleshy growths and tendrils that come out of the victim at this point look to be similar to octopus arms, and what they'll do is they'll grow out of the flesh and they'll spread out and latch onto anything in the nearby surrounding surfaces. This could be tables, this could be chairs, this could be other people. It'll consume whatever can be grabbed and latched onto, and while this is all happening, it is kind of rooting itself in that specific area, and it's preparing this area to be hospitable for the flesh. People infected with the flesh disease and have it progress past past that scar tissue stage, will begin to have this innate draw and addiction to infect other people with the flesh, meaning that they'll seek out anybody nearby, and those fleshy tendrils and moving flesh will go after anything they can touch or see or sense. This creates a sort of infected zone. The zone itself is estimated to be about 30 meters in diameter, and it is not recommended to cross into that infected zone unless you want to risk the flesh that hates consuming you as well. Now, this infection that I just described has occurred in several different areas inside of remote Siberia, as you can see on this map. Oftentimes, entire families and entire groups are turned into these flesh blobs, and those zones where the infection took root should never be entered by anything living. The only way we have information on this SCP at all, how it works, how it spreads, is by researchers utilizing remote robots that have cameras on them to view what's happening. If a human goes in there, the flesh hates humanity, so it'll try to consume it too. It seems to have disdain for living things. It's widely believed that this flesh virus came straight from the Russian government, or at least that's where the reports of the infections came from. Initial reports of this happening include things about missing locals and missing farmers and things like that. At the start, these reports of the missing people were ignored until an officer from the military was dispatched to the area to check it out, and then he didn't report back within 72 hours. After this, a small military group was sent in to investigate where he went to, and they came upon the scene of the living flesh. Bodies mangled and warped, bones cracked open, orifices leaking flesh. All the while, these fleshy blobs appear living and sentient. The network that this flesh and this SCP covers is very large, and it's sort of contained, but not really, which I'll talk about in the containment procedures part of this video. But the main concern is that there are caves underneath the area, and people think that the flesh could get into those caves and go out to God knows where and pretty much infect God knows who. Since the area that this SCP is infected is huge, like I said, it can't be contained, so to say. Instead, the more effective way of keeping people from being consumed is just by isolating the area with military, which is what's been done at this exact point. There's a military unit pretty much always patrolling this giant circle around this area. However, if someone does somehow get into this infected zone and displays symptoms of the flesh that hates, they're essentially going to get killed. The way to deal with this, and the thing that the military people have been instructed to do, is to immobilize the infected using a weapon and then burn their corpse to a crisp using other weapons. Any living thing infected by the SCP is to be treated as an expendable life that needs to be burnt. To be honest, that sounds better than letting flesh take me over and turn me into a lifeless meat sack. The origin of the flesh that hates is not listed publicly. It's redacted. However, since it's only located in this Russian area, it's probably from there. I'm no scientist or anything, but that seems to be the truth. SCP-610 is one of the most horrific instances of internet horror that I've ever read or thought about, and it is one of the worst fates that you could possibly endure. After a simple infection, you have allowed this flesh to take over your body, and over the next few days, your entire self will be mangled and warped into a fleshy, disgusting vestige of what you used to be. The flesh hates humanity, and it obviously wants to take it over, and if somehow it ever left the area that it's in, it could do just that until the entire world, every piece of soil, every rock is covered in a human flesh network. And life as we know it would come to an anticlimactic end, covered in wet flesh. All right, that was it for this SCP explanation. I really hope you enjoyed it. I love talking about things like this. It just gets me going. You know, if you enjoyed it too, please leave a like. If you want more SCPs, comment other ones I should talk about. Thank you for all your support. I got a lot of new stuff coming. I hope you guys are enjoying that. Thank you all for everything, and I can't wait to see what's going to continue to be uploaded on this channel, because I have so many good ideas, and thank you all for supporting me through it all. I love and appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!